Hi everyone. If you can hear me, just let me know in the chat so that I can tweak any settings if there's background noise or anything. If you're not able to hear me, just let me know in the chat. We'll still start at 1, but I just want to make sure the setup is correct before we get into all the nice things. Just let me know in the chat below if the audio is correct, if the display is correct. Ideally, you should be able to see a 1080p option in the video as well. Let me know if you do not see that. And yeah, we'll start very soon at 1 in 5 minutes. All right, for those of you who were saying low sound, let me know if there's any improvement now. There would be a little bit of background noise because in my regular videos I do a little bit of post processing with the microphone. But here, let's see. Let me know if the audio is okay now. Just let me know. And if there's a huge background noise, in that case I would try something else. But in any other case, if the background noise is bearable, because I would be speaking for the most part, so just let me know if that is something which we can go forward with. All right, so yeah, I believe for the most part it should work now. I will keep my eye on the chat. So if you face any problem during the stream, feel free to let me know in the chat below. So we'll start our session, but I would just like to give a quick intro to what this is all about to people who are here for the first time, because I'm doing this on my main Codedam channel. Most of you guys are from the mentorship part, but for those of you who are new here, this is basically one of the sessions we'll be following in the mentorship part. And what I believed is that front-end web development is like the first step you can take into web development world. So front-end web development is very important if you want to become a full stack, if you want to get into back-end development even. I mean, if you have a little bit of knowledge of front-end dev, you can basically make sense of a lot of things, like how the API is working, what data the front end expects, and all that stuff. So it is a very good choice as a tech stack, as something you want to learn as your first, if you want to move into professional job environment, or maybe if you want to earn through freelancing, or maybe even if you want to set up your own personal projects. Front end is like the first thing you could pick up as a tech stack. So this is the first session for the Codedam mentorship part. We'll be doing a lot of sessions together, like front end, back end, DevOps, cloud computing, all that stuff, how we can cover the overview of these things, and also we'll be going deep into a single tech stack. For example, inside front end, you're gonna see that there's a lot of things. React is another dimension in itself, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript is there, that's fine. Speaking of Webpack, for example, how do you approach Webpack? How do you learn Webpack? So, all these things actually constitute, as different topics themselves. So the idea for a session like this is to give you a brief overview of the whole industry, of the whole tech stack, and then later on we can, just splice everything apart and pick up individual techs and learn about them as well. So let's start. I think it's time. Yeah, we are exactly at 1. So people can join as we are conducting the session. That's not a problem. But some of you are asking how long would the stream be. I would like to keep it under an hour, but I want to give as much time as I can to the ending question and answers as well. So yeah, it kind of depends. So I would like to wrap it up really quick, keep it point to point. Do not waste a lot of time for you people. So let's start. Starting off with the front end, about me, like who I am, for those of you who have been not being subscribed to the channel, or you're not even part of the mentorship group. So I would like to keep my things small in list, so I can categorize myself as a full stack developer. Cloud, security, and coding are like 3 things I'm very interested in, apart from all that front end, back end, full stack stuff. I am also interested in entrepreneurship, helping people, and that typical want to make an impact kind of thing. So I'm kind of into that group as well. That's me if you have never seen me. So yeah, you can just picture me now in your head. And that's like the only DSLR photo I have of mine. So thanks to that one photographer who randomly clicked my photo in WWDC last year. So what is front end anyway? Well, front end, as the name says, you can see the answer lies in the name. The front end means the front part of technology, right? And in technologies, the consumer, that is you as a person who is using a particular tech stack, is always considered to be the front, right? So you have back end, you have front end. Back end is the technology which is powering a server. Front end is the technology which you as an end user is seeing, right? Is interacting with, is using. It could very well be a app, a UI made for I don't know, the kiosks you can see in, for example, McDonald's or anywhere. So all those kiosk stuff and apps you are using on the phone, they can be said as front ends, right? So that is a front end for an app, that is a front end for a kiosk, that is a front end for a website. Now, what we are interested in mostly is the front end web development. So what that means is that we're gonna use front end technologies applicable to web, that is applicable to something which people can experience in their browsers. And the term front end has kind of like defaulted to web only these days, because everything is made in web, right? So I made a video the other day about SpaceX. They're using JavaScript, so their front end is using JavaScript, the front end for the display panels. So it's kind of not web exactly what they are doing in the rocket, but because they're using JavaScript, you can say that it's front end web development. So the idea is developing interfaces for people who will be using your websites or using your products using a browser. That is the idea with front end web development. Now, this is another fact that your knowledge for front end is very much transferable to backends and all sorts of other domains, because JavaScript or any other language which you're using might be supported at that particular runtime as well, like on Ionic, like using Ionic on phone, or maybe like Node.js works with JavaScript as well. So you can transfer that part of knowledge, but the idea for front end is that it stays on the front side of client, that is as a person who's actually experiencing your web page. So this is like the very basic example I can come up with. If you visit example.com on your browser, you're gonna see a very simple page like example domain and a little bit of message, which is the front end for the example.com, right? So you can interact with this page, you can select this text, you can click on that more information link. So what you're seeing here is some piece of code which a person wrote on a backend server. When you visit example.com, that code is sent to you, your browser parses it down and creates this front end looking page, right? So the idea is your code is stored on a server. That code is called the front end code, which is delivered to you, which is a front end client, and that is being passed and displayed as a nice web page. Building front ends, what does it take? Now you might be extremely new to front end, so I'm just starting from the very basic, or you might also already know this thing. Doesn't matter, just stick along a little bit and we'll like kind of bring everyone to the same page. So for building front ends, you need HTML, you need CSS, and you need JavaScript. That's it. Everybody who says you need anything else to be a front-end developer, to fall into a definition of a front-end developer, is lying, right? They're just, just adding things which you don't really need to call yourself a front-end developer. These are the only three things which are really required as, as the critical things which you must have to call yourself a front-end developer. So one another fact I have is that the 100% of the web right now, any website you visit, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Instagram.com, Gmail, anything you visit, it is made only out of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Theoretically speaking, if you know these three technologies, you can build anything you see on the web. Now, it might not be easy, it might be very, very hard because of the complexity of the app, but technically your browser under the hood, when it receives that HTML, when it receives that response from the backend, it is only parsing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I'm just gonna leave aside the WebAssembly part right now, because although it is available right now, it is not that much popular. So for the most part, we can say that 100% of the web runs on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript only for the moment. All right, so let's talk about opportunities in front end, which you can exploit or explore. So the first thing is, it is a very popular industry. As you know, there are a lot of jobs with front end as a requirement. Junior front end developers, senior front end developers, there are a lot of openings. You can have a great salary, and because that is because it has a great demand. If you know the front end skills, you can get into freelancing, you can develop websites for your local businesses and charge them. You can get a formal job. You can switch your industries if you are working somewhere where you are not interested, or you think maybe it's not the future. And the overall demand for front end is a lot these days, and it's only going to increase with the increased usage of the web, right? And another noble cause which you can use, which you can think about, is that you can actually help people to interact with technology, like the stuff with accessibility and everything which is in the web. It would actually allow people to people who are not able to directly interact with displays and colors and any sort of device which we normally use. You can enable that, right? You can enable that interaction. So let's take a quick look on the Stack Overflow service for the most part, because that is like one of the most reputed developer sites out there. So Stack Overflow says that front-end developer is the third most used, or how should I say it, the third most profession in which people, I think there's a little bit of lag with the streaming. All right, so let me see if I can bring back the stream. All right, I think YouTube would do it on their own end. So the idea is that front-end developers, Stack Overflow service, says that it is the third most popular job as a developer. So 37% of developers all over the world, well, obviously based on the 50,000 responses, are inside the Stack Overflow as a front-end developer. You can also see that front-end developers are very well paid. The average salary for a front-end developer is roughly about 110K US dollars, which is pretty good if you ask me. And yeah, these were like two metrics to show you about that. And if you see the technology trend in the Stack Overflow survey, what you're gonna find is that the top 3 technologies, or you can say the top 2 if you're ignoring SQL for backend, are the front-end technologies, right? So you can clearly see that JavaScript, HTML, CSS are primarily the front-end technologies. They were made for front-end, they were built for front-end. It is a different thing that JavaScript is now used for a lot of other places as well, but the original functionality for JavaScript was built for the front-end. So if you know these 3 things, you're gonna be a very useful person, as you would be a very valuable asset to a company, to yourself, to the world even. So it's a good choice. The best part about it is it's super easy to start. Front end is a super easy field to get into. So what you have to do in order to get started with it is just start with HTML, CSS and JavaScript. But the bad part is that there's too much of content on front end. I see that some of you are saying that it keeps buffering. I have made some changes. Let me know if you still see buffering in 5 minutes, because I think the stream is a little bit behind the actual thing. All right, so I'm gonna continue. Let me just know in the chat, because I can see I'm a little bit behind on the live. So yeah, let's just continue. The bad part is, again, content overload. If you have ever been into the front end learning phase, you're gonna see that if you Google stuff, you're gonna have a lot of content on HTML, on CSS, on JavaScript. There's going to be tons of articles, tons of video content you can watch, tons of courses you can enroll in. You know, everything about that is overloading. So that is one part. The thing I can recommend you is that if you go ahead and look at Google, you're gonna see that the first result, at least what I get, is on the term becoming a front-end developer, is you have these, I don't know, nonsensical points like having a degree in computer science. I don't think a degree in computer science would be actually required for learning front end, right? Understanding server-side CSS, I still don't know what that means. Again, understanding the principles of SEO. Why would you need to learn search engine optimization as a front-end development requirement? That does not make sense to me. And the bad part is that this was the top result for me when I googled becoming a front-end developer. So the idea is that you cannot really follow a lot of things online, because if you just follow a single link, if you follow a single article, that is going to probably mislead you into what that particular author thinks about that. So always try to cross-check your source of knowledge, right? Always try to, just mix up your knowledge from the sources where you get it, so that the factors which are not common get nulled out and factors which are common are amplified. So some of the other problems I would just like to mention really quick with front end is that it is rapidly changing. So most of the content you might see might be outdated. I'm not saying all the content, but most of the part could be outdated, right? People teach in all sorts of way. I'm not targeting anyone. Even I teach in a different way. Somebody, some person might teach in one way, another person might teach in different way. So you might not exactly like the style of a single person. Another thing which I have noticed with front end is that if you go to sites like Twitter and everything, what you're gonna see is that people usually recommend tech stacks a lot. So if you're in a React kind of thing, you're gonna see a lot of people are just recommending React blindly. Hey, React is good. Hey, you should go for React. Hey, React is the future or whatever. If you go to the Angular side, that is the same thing. So don't be a sheep. Don't just blindly follow someone. If somebody's saying that React is good, figure out why React is good, right? Figure out why that person is saying that, that should be your choice. So make sure the decision you take is yours, not somebody else's. And again, it's just related to point number 3. There's a lot of tech bias in the community for that part, right? So if you're a React developer, you're going to recommend React. If you're Angular, you're going to recommend Angular. So again, make use of your mind for that part. So what you should do as a person who's learning, as a person who's who wants to get into front-end development, now I want you to close your eyes, not literally, but just understand this point, that what I will be telling you would take time, because what I'm telling you is a complete way from starting from absolute noob to a level where you want to bring yourself to, right? Where you're an expert, where you can see things which others can't see, where you want to be working in that particular job which you want, maybe earning a certain amount. So all those things are going to take a lot of time, right? That's not going to happen overnight. Understand that becoming a master is very important and is very difficult as well, because if it was not difficult, everyone would be a master, right? So you cannot have a lot of masters in the world, because that would kind of not make sense, because if you have a lot of masters, then nobody is a master. That's the point. Understand that your success is directly proportional to the amount of work you put in initially, at least initially, right? So if you're somebody new who's learning new things, or if you're somebody in the process of learning things, the more amount of work you do initially, the more is your output, right? You're gonna hit that exponential curve sooner or later, when you're gonna see that, hey, everything makes sense now. But your initial learning is very important, and probably you have to put more work than the output you're getting out. So these are the 3-4 things I think you should keep in your mind. Again, this live stream video was sent to I sent this email to about 2,400 people, right? People who were enrolled in the mentorship. And I can see right now I have 140 concurrent users right now. So I believe like the 90% of people didn't even bother joining that. And out of these 141 people also, which are watching this right now, I'm definitely sure that 95% of the people would not be following what I would be saying. Why? Because this thing is hard. It is honestly hard to get to a point where you are actually valuable enough for a company to pay you 120k, 130k, 150k US dollars, right? You have to put in work. I mean, like, it might be easy in some situations, but mostly you have to put in work. For some people, for someone who's a US citizen, who has contacts, who has networks, and he can get placed, it might be easy for him. But if you are an average person like me, if you are someone who does not have a lot of connections or a lot of outreach, all you can do is work. All you can do is put in the work and hope for the best. So 95% of the people are gonna back out because they are not willing to put in the work. That is my simple answer. If you are in the 5%, let's discuss what you can do in order to maximize your outcome, maximize your potential. Number 1, skills to learn. We have already discussed that. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? This is the fundamental thing you have to do. The very first step. Do not do anything else before learning HTML, CSS and JavaScript, right? I don't care you use a notepad, I don't care you use VS Code, I don't care you use IntelliJ, anything, use any text editor, but learn these things without messing with other technologies very first. I see a lot of people who start with React directly. Now, this might work for the 1% of the population, that they are, they are those crazy dudes who can just learn 700 things simultaneously. But the best approach is to learn the basics at least a bit, right? Don't jump directly into complicated things. Like, I would say React is complicated to a person who has never done front-end development. It is definitely complicated, understanding all that architecture, how React works, how the reconciler works, how the components are rendered on the screen. That is difficult. That is difficult to understand if you do not have a basic understanding. So learn about that. Take 1 to 2 months. That is my personal suggestion. It might vary a lot. For you might be a very quick learner. It might take you just a couple of weeks to get started. Some of you might be slow learners, so just know yourself, who you are. This is not a hard and fast deadline. It is not a deadline. It is not something you should, stress over. It's just my timeline, which I can throw on an average person, that hey, it might take you 1 to 2 months without me knowing you at all, right? So that's the idea. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Spend at least a couple of months. See how the things work, how the internals work. Build a lot of things simultaneously. That is very important. We'll come to that later. But yeah. Number 2, figure out how HTTP works. I cannot tell you how many people know about front-end development and they would not know how HTTP works as a whole. Now, by HTTP, I mean what exactly happens, like when you write a google.com address in your browser, when you visit facebook.com. Why is that sometimes some websites would redirect you to HTTPS and some websites won't? What is the importance of HTTPS? How the network works, how the TCP stack works, how, I'm not saying that go into depth of all this, but know at least the things that they exist, that there's something known as HTTP, there's something known as a GET request, there's something known as POST request, the REST API architecture. Know about these things, the status code. It is important for you as a front-end developer as well, because a lot of people think that this kind of falls in the back-end domain, that REST API and all that stuff. But no, I believe as a front-end developer, you should be able to tell the backend guys when you're getting a 504 or 403 error from the backend, that yeah, this is the problem, and we are not able to use the API. So know about how HTTP works. That is important. How the network under the front end, which is your layer, is working. Again, this is not something which would take a year or two, hardly a week, right? So if you have the right resources, you just have to binge through a simple playlist, read a bunch of articles. That's it, nothing more. I would say it would take, for an average guy, it would take 3 to 7 days. Again, depends on your mileage, how much time you have in a day, how much you can put in the work, how much you have the time, again, just like I said. So yeah, number 3 is, what I feel is, learn to debug. You are a human, you're gonna make errors always. I make errors, I make tons of problems with my code when I'm working, but everyone else makes that too. The difference between people who fed up and give up, and the difference between people who actually make the applications work, is that the people who make them work know how to debug them properly. Do you seriously think that engineers at Google are some sort of gods or something, which make no bugs in their code, nothing at all? People sitting in Netflix are handling 10-15% of the traffic of the internet. They do not make any bugs? Of course not. They make all sorts of bugs, and they would have a lot of bugs in the production. But the idea is that they know how to debug things. They know how to approach a problem. For you as a front-end developer, what's the approach? Learn about DevTools. DevTools, what is DevTools? Just go to any page, right click there, click on inspect element. That's the DevTools. DevTools should be worshipped by a front-end developer, because it is an amazing piece of tool which allows you to debug your code very effectively. You can set breakpoints in JavaScript. You can analyze your box modeling in CSS, see the computed style, see the DOM structure, modify it on the fly, all sorts of things. I can't tell you how many developers I know that that are front-end developers. They know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but they do not know how to work with DevTools. So it is very important to actually learn how to use your debuggers. And for front end, the best debugger is DevTools, right? Now, whether you're using Firefox or Chrome, it does not really matter. Just pick a favorite browser. Mine is Chrome. A lot of developers use Firefox, and learn to use DevTools for that. That is your step 3. After learning HTML, CSS, and just figuring out with the basics of how that all works, learn about DevTools as well. Again, not a hard and fast limit. Mileage may vary, but I think a week is a good time for DevTools, for learning DevTools, given that you have the right resources with you. Checkpoint number 1, you are a front-end developer at this point. I mean, if you honestly go by the book, at this point, you are a front-end developer. You might not be a good front-end developer. You might not be a great front-end developer. You might be a very bad front-end developer, but you can call yourself a front-end developer. Now, at this point, do not stop. Do not enjoy things. I mean, you can obviously celebrate, your learnings, which you have learned so much in the last couple of months or so. But the idea is keep building things, right? Build. That is the reason I wrote that last build, which goes all the way out of the screen probably, but not really. But yeah, the idea is to build things. When you build things, you're gonna learn how to use tools. You're gonna learn how to use HTML, CSS, JavaScript. When you build things, you're gonna make errors. You're gonna make bugs in your code. And when you make bugs, you're gonna learn how to use DevTools. So the idea is build things. Building things is very important. I cannot emphasize this enough. Almost every article I write on topics which involve front and back end, learning programming, I make sure I emphasize on building stuff. The only reason I can code into front end, back end, full stack is that with every tech stack I picked up, I have built something. For every language I know, I have a project for it. It might not be public. You might not want to make it public, but yeah, I still remember my first project with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and jQuery. As a matter of fact, it was 7 years back. Was a simple stone, paper, scissors game, which was hosted on one of my domains, right? So it was a pretty exciting thing, and yeah, I mean, you should have those kind of projects with you, because they kind of help you to boost your morale, as well as help you to actually put something on the list of the things you have done, as well as they help you solidify what you have been learning. Theory and practical are completely different, right? When you do practical, when you do things practically, you're gonna actually learn them in a much better way. Theory is important, but it is useless without actually doing things. All right, now that you have a little bit of confidence in you with the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript thing, what I'm gonna do is jump to number 4. That would be picking a JavaScript framework. Now, this is an important moment in a front-end developer's life. Honestly, what I recommend a lot of times is try React, Angular, and Vue. One of React, Angular, and Vue at a time. There are a lot of other frameworks as well. Svelte is one of them. There's this fancy concept known as web components as well. But the idea is to keep your noise low, right? The problem with the web, the problem with front end, is that there's an explosion of technologies available. There's so much available that you would be lost if you try everything out. That is why I tell people to try only these three, and even if you want to try that's your choice. Like, if you want to just pick up one and go all into that, that's fine. So try React, try Angular, try Vue. These are the 3 most commonly used frameworks. They are most widely supported as well. Like, they are well maintained. Angular is backed by Google. React is backed by Facebook, and Vue is an independent framework. So, these are very much maintained frameworks. So you're gonna not be disappointed when you learn them. Things are not going to break, at least on the framework level, if you learn them. That's the idea. And learn an associated UI library like Bootstrap 5 was just released. It's a good looking framework. It helps you to create a lot of components pretty quick. Yeah, so Bootstrap is one good choice. Material UI is another thing, which is some sort of UI guidelines from Google. On the base of that, a lot of libraries have been built. For example, Material UI is the name of the library for React, and I believe Angular comes with Material UI baked in. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I think Angular has first class support for Material UI as well. And for Vue as well, there is a lot of support available for third-party libraries, which add a lot of neat and beautiful components. Learn about UI libraries because they would actually help you create stuff very fast. You're gonna not have all the time in the world to style that component for mobiles, for desktops, for laptops, make all that stuff responsive. You need a little bit help from the library as well, right? So that helps you. Again, time frame for this is a couple of months. That should be good, right? So this is checkpoint number 2. I believe at this point you can actually earn pretty good in 2020. Now you might be able to just earn with HTML, CSS, JavaScript as well for simple jobs, but once you add a UI library like React or a complete framework like Angular, what happens is that now you can actually build applications. You can build production applications. You can build complicated apps. That is the point. You earn by actually providing value to the other party, whether it's a startup, whether it's a company, whether it's a client, whether it's your consumer, which is like you are independently developing an app. So once you are at this point, when you know a framework, when you know a library as well pretty well, you can earn. You can do freelancing, you can apply for companies, you can apply for startups with your tech skills, right? So there are sites like Stack Overflow Jobs, TripleByte. There are numerous sites for searching for companies and remote work online. And I'm still surprised why people ask me the question that how should I find a job. That like the answer is in front of you. Build skills, build your resume, make projects, learn tech stacks, and start applying. Like if you do not have a job, just consider your job to apply for a job, right? So like sit from 9 to 5 in the day searching for jobs, refining your resume, making projects, making something which shines on your resume, on your CV, whatever it is, and apply for companies. Like why do everyone wants to get into Google in the first go? Why do everyone wants to be in the FANG companies? Like, I mean, a well-funded startup would probably pay you much better than being placed in Amazon or Apple or Google or Netflix, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I mean, just make sure to hit that right spot, hit that goal which you have in mind, and search for companies. There are tons of companies looking for people who are skillful and valuable. So don't stop searching. Now it's time to improve your worth. Once you have hit that scale, it's time to actually improve what your tech stack already is. Now it's time to explore about web in depth. Learn about great web tools. Tooling is very important in web because it would save you hours, days, weeks of time. I mean, once you have a powerful combination of tools set up, I can tell you how productive that makes you. When you only have to focus on your core product, on your core coding part, that helps you forget about all the other tooling like browser support, just making CSS compatible with older browser versions, bundling, minifying, compressing assets, all that stuff. So make sure your tooling is right. That helps you a lot to become a better developer overall. Build code on top of other great code. I mean, there is a lot of free open source code available online. Just go ahead, see that, see what you can build on top of that. There are frameworks like React, Angular, libraries like that. So yeah, that's the idea. Learn about those tools, build stuff on top of that. Again, starting off with the most used tool, I would say, on the web is Webpack, right? And I'm actually reading the comments, but H3R0, but it's actually difficult to, just go with the slides as well as just keep reading the comments as well. So I plan to take up questions on the on the end, but obviously if you want to start a blame game like this, we cannot provide value to anybody. So anyway, um, coming back to the slides, Webpack is a very popular module bundler, but what happens is that uh, it is much more than a module bundler itself, right? So you can plug in all sorts of plugins, all sorts of presets. You can combine Webpack and Babel together in sorts of configurations. And the good thing about Webpack is it's fully controllable, as the whole tool is controllable with just a single configuration file. You might have to install different plugins using npm and all that stuff, but the core idea is that you can actually have the full configuration in front of you in just a single file. You can obviously split that for your own readability, but that's the idea. And again, just like I said, it's highly configurable. And what I believe is a good time frame for Webpack learning is a couple of weeks. I mean, if you're good with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you would be able to pick up Webpack pretty quickly, because the core idea of Webpack is just taking up the files you have been coding together, mixing them together, bundling them together, and shipping them to the browser in the minified version, in a compact version, in a browser compatible version which works with older browsers as well, like Internet Explorer. Edge is actually new now, but yeah, IE11 is like the last line of browsers we have to support, at least for now. Okay, number 7 is that I believe npm is a very important tool. I have seen a lot of people who just know how to install and remove packages, which is like good enough, but it's always great to have an in-depth knowledge of npm as well, right? How npm actually works, like setting up the location for global packages, what is package lock.json file, why it is needed, asking the right questions, asking the questions which would actually enable you to debug critical bugs, questions which would be very hard to Google otherwise. So when you have the information about a technology like this, it would be actually beneficial for you. So again, because it's a package manager for Node and web, it's an important thing. And again, just like I said with Webpack, it's highly configurable. It's not a lot of work to learn npm. It would probably take you 1 week or maybe 2 if you're busy, but yeah, given the right resources, you should be able to learn at least that much npm, which is good enough for you to act as a great front-end developer. Another tool is Git, to add to your bucket list. Allows you to work with teams. I hope everyone knows what Git is. I'm not going to go into depth of that. It's just a version control system which allows you to manage different versions, different branches, different releases of your software, and just jump back and forth into history and future if you want. So yeah, HR 30, I want to wrap this up under 1 hour, but let's see. I want to take question and answers as well. It's a free stream. I mean, if you can just if you don't want to be here, you can leave. That's the idea, right? So anyway, easy. Again, Git is an easy tool to learn, to start creating branches, master branch, git add, dot, adding files, git staging, gets you the stage, all that basic commands you should know about. Again, it will just take you a couple of weeks, I hope, to actually get a bit of understanding with this tool. Number 9 is Sass, but trust me, I do not want to enforce this on everybody, because SaaS can get pretty complicated. I mean, you have all sorts of things in SaaS, but I do not recommend, you learning SaaS from the core of your heart, right? So because for the most part, CSS is very powerful, right? You won't need a lot of things apart from CSS in the front end web development. SaaS is pretty useful because of the nesting, the different special CSS selectors and all that stuff, but don't spend a lot of time on complicated SaaS things, right? Spend them somewhere which is more useful and more fruitful to you. Again, it's easy to learn basics for SaaS, but again, do not go into SaaS into very much in depth, because just like I said, for the most part, CSS is good enough. Just give a couple of weeks, a week or two, depends on how much time you have and how quickly you learn. So that's the idea. Number 10 is Babel. Babel is a transpiling tool for JavaScript, which means that you can write awesome new JavaScript syntax, that ES7, ES8, ES9 syntax, but it would actually help you transpile it down to a standard which is supported by older browsers as well. So not a lot of browsers ship with a lot of features right now of the modern JavaScript, but Babel allows you to use them in your code and transpile them down as as a backup, as a thing that if the browser does not support it, here you go. Again, I would say do not waste a lot of time learning on the complex Babel things. Transpiling is a pretty huge job. Babel is a pretty complicated software. I won't say it's a easy software to master, right? Especially if you get stuck in the internals of Babel and Webpack. So do not go into depth of these softwares. Just know about what these softwares are capable of doing, and in case if in future you want to use these tools to your benefit, you should know that yes, I can use Babel for this part, or yes, I can use Webpack, or yes, maybe SaaS would be good enough here. The idea is not to download the book in your brain. The idea is to keep index in your brain, so that you have the information that yes, this thing is available, I know this thing exists, let me just Google that and figure out how we can make use of that. Because you cannot keep everything in your mind simultaneously, right? What you can do, however, is you can keep the idea that something exists. Now, I know that Babel can be used to transpile JavaScript down to ES5. I can recommend it to somebody who wants a strict cross-browser support, but I do not necessarily need to know the whole Babel configuration for supporting IE6, right? As an example. So that's the idea. Do not waste a lot of time on things which you can Google eventually and are complicated. Time again is 1 week for the most part. This is your checkpoint number 3. Now you can build a fully customizable front end at this point, right? And I believe with the help of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, JavaScript library like React or framework like Angular, Babel, SaaS tools, web tools like this, you can actually be a very good developer. You can actually add all that stuff to your resume, and you can look for even better jobs with a higher paying grade or whatever benefits you want. So this is like, I would consider that as a checkpoint once you are aware about these technologies. All right, so now starts the part where you are actually becoming unbeatable, where you are becoming the master of your field, right? So at this point, when you're done with the basics and stuff, try to revisit everything from the start, because I mean, unless you're somebody who wants to learn everything on the first go, at least I'm not that person. I cannot learn everything on the first go. You would have missed a lot of things, right? It is just not possible to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript completely on the first go. I mean, I still know, I still come across a lot of things in JavaScript which I do not know about. Those edge cases, those complicated things, those tricky questions, they always exist. So revisit everything from the scratch. Learn about modern HTML5 APIs. This is the start. These are just a little bit of my suggestions, which could be things you might have missed while learning HTML, but this is like not an exhaustive list at all. One of the things I like about about great developers which are working on a very senior position in companies is that they know their tooling for the most part as well. So one of the traits for a good React developer is that he would know how React kind of works under the hood as well, right? Because what happens when there's a re-render of the component, for example, what happens when the value of a use state hook changes, what exactly happens, how is a functional component different from a class-based component. So these are important things which might not be actually necessary for building a React application, but these things would come very handy when you are stuck in that edge case bug, right, where your component is re-rendering for some reason and you do not know why, where you have a duplicate state, or maybe you have an older state and you do not know why the state is not updated. So these things, the internals of your tools, I know I have told about not go into a depth of Babel or Webpack, but this is the part where we are becoming unbeatable, right? So this is the part where you actually start to actually absorb your tooling as well. So learn about your tooling, learn about things which you use at least a bit. I mean, you should know things about what you're using. Just don't consider something as a black box for yourself, right? Get into the tooling which you use, learn about that, how it works, and yeah, that's like a step for becoming unbeatable. Again, this is like a random time duration, does not matter honestly. Take as much time as you want. You might spend 2-3 months, you might spend I mean, this is a continuous learning path for the most part. Like it's not time bound that after 2 months you would become unbeatable. It's a continuous learning from now on. Another thing I want is web performance for you guys to check out if you want to become unbeatable in the industry. A lot of programmers can code applications. Not a lot of people can make that application run fast on every device. So learn about stuff like CDNs, prefetching, preloading, care about people who are running less powerful device, less number of CPUs on their device. For example, if a person is running a 2015 smartphone, can your website load properly in under 5 seconds? Are you using too much JavaScript? Are you shipping too much JavaScript? Are you using server-side rendering? Are you using some sort of best practices for developing web projects? Maybe at this point we can introduce a little bit of search engine optimization as well. So if you're running a React website, how do you make sure that your website is actually ranked as as a page in Google as well? Because search bots like Google and Bing and all these search engines don't really prefer to execute JavaScript on your website. So you need to have that markup ready in your website itself. So yeah, I mean, just learn about these things, because this extra knowledge, you are a front-end developer, that's for sure, but these extra things, these extra knowledge which you're gonna gather by actually expanding your domain a little bit here and there, it's going to actually pay you a lot as a person in value as well in the future. So again, learn to use about these tools. Like Lighthouse is a great tool for analyzing the performance. Profiling your JavaScript, your code is so important for performance measuring. Like if you just go to your dev tools, there's a profiling tab where you can take your heap snapshots and analyze how much memory you have been allocated, how much JavaScript you have been allocated. Learn about memory leaks, what they are, how you can prevent them. That is like the quality of an unbeatable developer. He knows things which other people might overlook, right? So these are the tools, these are the things you should be making sure that you know. So yeah, again, this is just a random timeline. Take as much time as you want, because again, this is a journey, this is not a destination. You cannot become unbeatable on some day, wake up and just throw your arms in the air and yeah, I'm unbeatable now. That's not how it works. You're gonna be on a journey. Like you're gonna be upgrading yourself every day, and someday you're gonna realize that yes, you're better than 99% of the developers. So that's how it's going to happen for you. TypeScript is another thing I like a lot, honestly. It is used on front end as well. For a lot of projects now, they ship They ship with TypeScript out of the box. Angular supports TypeScript like by default. Vue supports it, React supports it. So it's a great runtime to add to your bag of skills, right? It just supercharges your JavaScript experience. I'm not going to get into what TypeScript is exactly, but just know about that. Hey, Mehul on July 30th told me about TypeScript for becoming unbeatable. So I might want to check that out after I have done this many things, right? So again, the idea is to download the index, not the book. I'm giving you the index right now. I'm not giving you the book. Again, allows you to build and manage massive code bases. With JavaScript, the thing is that it's forgiving. JavaScript is a very forgiving language, and it's a boon and it's a curse as well. It's a boon for new developers. It's a curse for people who want to actually maintain standards in the code and they want to maintain clarity and everything. And yeah, I mean, TypeScript kind of fills that gap. It's the bridge for both of those sorts of groups. Faster development time 1 to 2 months, all that good stuff. Again, this is something important. JavaScript engine internals. Not a lot of people know this, trust me. You can learn all the JavaScript you want, but do you actually know what is happening under the hood? JavaScript runs, now I can talk about this all day, but I don't want to get into that. The JavaScript runs using some sort of engine, right? So JavaScript is kind of, you can think of, it's a code which you are writing. That code is read by an engine like V8 or any popular engine for JavaScript. As a matter of fact, Chromium uses JavaScript, Chrome uses JavaScript, not JavaScript, the V8 engine. And these engines work in a certain way. These engines use some technology known as event loop. So there's a reason why JavaScript just uses a single thread. There's a reason why JavaScript is so fast with callbacks and everything. There's a reason how all that works. So learn about event loop, learn about the internal JavaScript architecture, why it is single threaded, what are web workers, how you can implement multi-threading kind of environment in the browser itself for JavaScript. That is again using web workers. I just answered that, but yeah, that's the idea. Learn about the internals for the language. Microtask queues, promises, set intervals, set timeout, set immediate, how this all works. Like, why is that JavaScript runs on a single thread and still it is not blocked by set timeout or set interval? Learn about these things. Trust me, they are actually exciting once you reach a point where you can actually understand these things. It's super exciting as well as a developer to learn these things. Again, random timeline, don't really bother about this a lot. Just take your time, whatever you think is right. This is like one of the milestones, you can say, when you are so good that you're actually now contributing back to the world. So you can write great NPM packages, you can contribute to open source, you can manage a package which is used by a lot of developers. You're gonna see a lot of times that there's a request on a popular GitHub repository that, hey, we are looking for maintainers, we are very busy with our work. So if you have that skill set to manage that thing, that's a big thing. I mean, yeah, hats off to you if you're managing a good NPM, if you're managing a good open source package. That takes a lot of work and you're doing it for free. So that is a quality of an unbeatable developer for me, if you ask. And overall, this would give you an overview of how the whole ecosystem works at the moment, right? So this would teach you how NPM packages work. This would teach you how other developers write code. This would teach you how to communicate, how to interact with other developers similar to your level, or maybe people who know less than you, how to bring them up. Just doing this stuff would actually help you gain that experience you cannot gain just by doing stuff by yourself. So that's important. Again, I don't even know why I write this timeline, but anyway, just ignore this for now. Again, I think this is the final one for becoming unbeatable. Merge industries. This is like the last step you can do for quitting front end. That is not really quitting, but just done and dusted kind of thing. Start working on other industries now. Once you're done with front end, you can start with back end too. Now remember, I'm going to tell you that, but I personally did not do this. I personally started working with front end and back end simultaneously. So again, This is my view only for people who want to approach a thing. You can start working with backend simultaneously as well, but what I believe is the most efficient thing is you can just go ahead with front end, build some application, see where the backend would fit, start working with that as well. Keep the backend skills low, like keep the the time you invest for the backend part low. Keep focusing on front end, but just make sure your backend does the work which is required for you, right? So your main focus, if you're learning front end, should be front end. Just use back end as a matter of as a thing you need in place for your front end to work. And yeah, I mean, start the road to become a full stack developer. Full stack developer is just a fancy word for a person who knows front end and back end, and he can set up a bunch of databases. Trust me, it's just like it's easy to say that you're a front end developer by learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It's super easy to say that you're full stack once you're front end. You can transfer that JavaScript knowledge to backend using Node.js and MongoDBs. Trust me, it's just a one-day work if you know about front end and backend, and you can basically just paste a full stack label on your resume. But the idea is to become unbeatable. These tech web is super easy to get into. That is why we have a billion developers working in web industry. But how many people do you really think are actually good? Not a lot. I won't say a lot of people are good. Why is that? Because most of the people are not actually well equipped with the whole ecosystem, well equipped with all the technologies. They have not worked with a lot of things yet. That is why we have a lot of developers which are okayish in a lot of things, but they won't be able to deploy a full application end to end. They call themselves full stack, but they might be having a hard time figuring out why that background color is blue and not pink. So you don't want to be that kind of developer. So yeah, I mean, one last thing, not really last, but yeah, for this part is never stop learning. That is like a motivational statement, but I don't know how to turn this into a motivational tone for now, but so I'm just gonna keep it that. So the what part is done. That is what you should do. I have given you the index. Now how you should do it. How can you become a front-end developer? I have told you what you have to do, but how do you approach that? Here's a list of resources you can refer to learn from, and I'm gonna start with my favorite one, which is personally I use a lot, and a lot of my friends know about this, and it is like I refer them about this point a lot of times as well. So a lot of people in the chat would probably know about this as well. The 10 tab principle is an interesting principle which I came up with. It's basically what you have to do is, if you have a doubt, if you have ever a doubt in the mind that you're stuck somewhere, that color is not becoming pink or blue or whatever, how do you make a global variable in JavaScript, or how do you set a local storage value, anything, any question, Google it. Just go to google.com, Google the exact question, whatever comes to your mind. I mean, not even the exact question, or maybe the exact error you're seeing in the console, anything. Just Google it, hit enter, open 10 tabs, starting from the first link all the way to the first 10. Make sure you do not click on an ad because they are mostly useless, but open the first 10 tabs and read all of them. And trust me, you're gonna find your answer. Maybe in the 7th tab, maybe in the 8th tab, maybe in the first tab. But even if you do not find your answer, you now have the perspective of 10 different people, at least 10 different people. The idea is that try to learn from a lot of sources. This is what I told in the starting of the chat as well. What happens is, a lot of times a person who's writing an article or a blog or an answer on Stack Overflow, he has his own bias, right? You want to remove that bias, but at the same time you want to retain that good part of the answer. You want that person to retain that part, that this part was correct and this was biased. So how do you do that? You do that by referring to 10 different sources. Now 10 people cannot have same bias at all, ever, on the internet, right? So take out the common things from those 10 things, 10 tabs you learned from, and look for an answer. I mean, you have 10 perspectives, 10 different perspectives, and see what your problem was and what's the solution that was proposed. For the most part, you're gonna find almost everything using this approach. Again, I'm building codedamn.com for a person who wants to learn programming, right? So this is something I wished that was for me, because I learned to code from a lot of places, like just like I said, the 10 tab philosophy. But honestly, it gets tiring really quick, because you cannot just do it for everything. Like learning HTML 10 playlist, you do not have 50 hours a day, right? So you do not want that. So CodeDamn is a platform which I'm building right now. It's not built, again, it's not in its finished state, probably it never will be, but it's being built for developers like you, for people like you who want to get into programming. And as a matter of fact, the front-end developer roadmap on CodeDamn is actually live, right? So I'm gonna show you some links. You can actually go to codedamn.com to look at the front-end developer roadmap as well, where you would actually be able to interactively see whatever I told you in this presentation, and just interact with things, see what you have to learn: HTML, Next, CSS, JavaScript, all that stuff. YouTube is great for free videos. Just go to YouTube, search on HTML tutorials, search on JavaScript tutorials, search on MongoDB, React, all that stuff. For the most part, you might find that a playlist is a bit old. Like if you are learning React from my own playlist back in 2018 or something, it's a bit old, right? So that factor remains with YouTube. So that's something you want to consider. And Stack Overflow and Reddit is also one of the sources I personally used myself to be where I am today, honestly. And take Reddit apart, Stack Overflow is the most used developer platform personally from my side also. So if you look up Stack Overflow, for me, I mean, I have answered questions, I have asked questions as well. I have a 15,000 reputation on Stack Overflow, I guess. And yeah, that came from answering questions and asking questions. So it is super important to ask questions when you're learning. Please do not stop asking questions, no matter what everyone says to you, no matter how many people you offend anywhere, no matter how downvoted you get on Stack Overflow. Do not take it to heart. You are here to learn. Just keep it that way. Just use these platforms to your disposal, which is like available for free to you guys. This is one of the tested way out of many ways. Like you can learn front-end development in a lot of ways, but this is like the way I'm proposing, which was in this presentation. The CodeDamn front-end developer part is built by me, just like I said, for people like 14-year-old me. So again, the idea was that if I would have found CodeDamn at that point in my life, I might have just shaved down at least a couple of years. I'm pretty sure about that. I mean, I used to do a lot of Googling. I used to do a lot of work on YouTube, Mozilla Developer Network, MDN, that is, W3 schools, the original sources, the places where actually developers actually learn. So, that is what I want to put out to the world. That is, if you can save a couple of years or so by using a platform like CodeDamn, well, why don't you do that? It's just that I want to make CodeDamn as much interactive, as personalized as I can. That means it includes projects and theory-based courses as well for the front-end developer path as well. So we have, if you take a look at codedamn.com, you're gonna see that there's the HTML, CSS, JavaScript courses. Then there are courses where you actually build projects as well. Then there are labs which actually test what you have built. Now, all these labs and courses and everything actually gives you a hands-on practice as well, which is very important. Just like I said, building things is super important. Like, you can watch videos all day, but at the end of the day, you're gonna only succeed, you're gonna only get ahead of people when you build things. So I aim to develop that interface for you, for people who want to learn on the CodeDamn side as well. So you might want to check that out. Again, that uses the real cloud server. So if you have ever used the Codedam learning part, so you actually get an actual bash terminal on the web platform itself, which means that I'm running a real cloud server just for you to practice on. And of course, if you take a look at the Codedam pricing, which unlocks a lot of exclusive features, which helps me to actually provide you, which is the paying customer, a better access, as well as a person who cannot pay right now, better courses as well. So, just to go about the two plans, which two interfaces which Codedam has. The Codedam free version has most of my content available for free. You have learning certificates. If that's something which boosts you up, that is a good thing to have. And learn with people like you. Like, we are already running the mentorship group for Codedam, so that is like one advantage where you can hold yourself accountable for for your progress. So actually, this is one of the things I want, is that after this session, just go ahead in the group, in your group, in the mentorship group, and just discuss about what you learned, what should be your next step, and what's happening next, so that I can even know that what you plan to do. The Codedam 1337, and I hope that a lot of people do not know about this, but 1337 means leet in the leet code language. Not really leet code as in the leetcode.com, but leet is a way to speak things in the security world, for a lack of better word. So yeah, I mean, I like this analogy. So I have Codedam 1337 plan, where I actually take the responsibility to make you a lead. A lead is a person who's good with computers and everything, right? So it costs 13.37 US dollars, and yeah, it basically allows me to help people like you and to help everyone in general. So, running those cloud servers and running those courses, getting those content creators online, just not me, but all the content creators we have. And if you sign up for that, you actually let someone learn on the tech stack, because we offer a lot of things for free as well. So that's the thing I want to just put out right there. And this is the cost. You can find that on the pricing page as well, but that's the basic idea. Visit codedam.com to learn more about that. So yeah. And one final thing I want to just tell you all before wrapping this thing up. I hope you know all what this is. This is a cocoon, right? So always make sure that you are not comparing your first day with someone's 1337th day. Well, that 1337 does not really mean a lot here, but the idea is, do not compare your first day to somebody who has been working for 1,000 days, right? You would be there after 1,000 days only. You cannot be a master, you cannot be an expert on the second day, right? So do not be discouraged, do not be I don't know, sad or whatever, that you are not making progress. The progress is slow, the progress comes slowly. That is why not a lot of people can be masters. That is why a lot of people can't be at the top of the industry. Just keep putting in the work, and you're gonna reach there eventually, right? So that's the idea. And now I believe it's the Q&A time. So let me just go ahead and Oh, I think. Oh shit. Yep, I was muted. I'm so sorry, guys. I think I answered so many questions, but I was muted. Oh no. Okay, let's do it quickly again. So I was at this question. It's just write your question again if I missed your question. So it's good to learn development part and competitive programming simultaneously. Um, Again, this depends on, you know, if you have the right distribution in place. That is, if you already are pretty much good with competitive, you do not really need to spend a lot of time with competitive alone. Just push 8 hours to development, 2 hours to competitive. If you're good with development, push 2 hours to that, 8 hours to competitive. That's how it's going to work. uh, is it good for me to learn Python at first hand? Of course, why not? Just go ahead, give it a try, see if this is something you like. But again, just like I said, this session was for front end. So Python cannot be used for front end development. It can be used for back end part, but yeah, that's the idea. My question is, what level of projects would you expect from a fresher applying for a job as a front end developer, like the bare minimum? If I am hiring someone as a fresher, I would at least want to see at least HTML, CSS, and JavaScript with at least a single framework. Like, not the expertise, not, you know, mastery or anything, but something which tells me that yeah, you can put effort and you have been putting effort, right? So yeah, that's the idea. I already learned Python and gotta say it's huge. Yeah, everything is huge. I mean, if you want to go into the depth of anything, it takes a lot of time, honestly. I have a good grip on Vue. Should I switch to, or should I also learn React along with Vue? No, I won't say that you should learn React along with Vue, honestly. If you have a good grip on Vue, double down on your Vue skills. I mean, you can never have a full 100% grip, right? If you have a 80% grip, make it 90. If you have a 90, make it 95. If you have a 95, make it 97. Learning and mastering two frameworks for front end is almost always a disaster, right? You won't find any startup working with React and Vue together, honestly. So make sure you are master of at least one, and if you want, you can go ahead and, you know, just play around with React or Angular a little, and yeah, just see how it works for you. Yep, I muted myself and I have unmuted. I'm so sorry. I think when I was just grabbing that screen from the secondary monitor, I muted myself. Kind of. That's that's what happened, I guess. Thanks, Abhi. Thank you. If I was able to help. No questions from my side. It was an amazing intuitive. Thank you, Ursalan. Muted. Everyone is saying muted. Okay. How to get better at design stuff like CSS and working with SVGs and all? Yeah, I have answered your question, but I guess I was muted. So yeah, the idea is that SVGs is pretty nasty stuff, honestly, if you ask me. If you get into SVGs and everything, you're gonna see that there's a lot of things going on, and for the most part, you won't really want to write SVGs by yourself as well. For complicated tools, you would have Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, stuff like this, exporting the images in form of SVG to you, right? For the CSS part, that is the designing, that is probably the UI part, right? So you want to be a UI developer, UI designer or something. But trust me, I don't really, this is not my department. I don't really know how you get good with the designing part, right? So it's a different field, it's a different art. So for the most part, you as a developer can make use of libraries like, just like I mentioned, Material UI, Bootstrap, Tailwind CSS, which ship with those, you know, set default things which are nice and appealing to humans. So that is how you get a better sense of design. The other way I use a lot of times is like taking inspirations from multinational companies and, you know, big companies. Like, if you go ahead and take a look how Instagram does it designing, or how Airbnb does it app designing, so you're gonna see that these guys have actually invested so many dollars, millions of dollars in development, and getting everything right. So you can actually believe that their designing team is doing much better, and you can follow that design, right? So if that answers your question, I think that's how you would approach designing as a developer who's not a actual designer. For career switches, is it better to go for junior developers jobs or to dive right into normal developer jobs? I have heard mixed opinions on this. Dan, I would say that it depends on you, honestly. Do you think that you are eligible for a junior developer job or a senior developer job or normal or whatever you wrote? But yeah, I mean, a lot of times people actually underestimate their skill set as well. It's not that you're always, just being overconfident and everything. A lot of times I have seen people who are actually good, but they would consider that they are not good. So that is also a disastrous thing, a disastrous mind state to be into, right? So yeah, I would say that just go ahead, give it a shot. Even if the company rejects you, you are not losing anything for the most part, right? And if you get selected, well, that's an advantage, right? So the idea is that always try to give it a shot if you feel that you are close enough, right? Obviously you cannot just apply for a DevOps job when you have no skill, but if you think you are close enough, you might make it, you might not make it. Then the best idea is to just go ahead and take a leap of faith, go ahead and apply for it, see what happens. How many more sessions are there? Sorry, I've missed a question. Ionic or Flutter? Honestly, I would say I won't have that much experience with Flutter that I have with Ionic, but it's a fight between hybrid and native, so I won't really get into that. But the idea is that Ionic would help you to have more or less a singular code base with your web if you want. But Flutter, on the other hand, would allow you to make use of native widgets and everything and get even a nicer and neat performance on very old devices as well, which might be a priority for extremely popular companies like WhatsApp, right? So you cannot really afford to lose those customers who are running a 6-year-old device. But for a fast-moving startup or fast-moving companies who does not has a lot of customers initially and wants to prototype early, things like Ionic and hybrid solutions are good. So yeah, how many more sessions are there? I think I would like to keep um, a lot of sessions like this, because I can see the value this could bring to the community. So yeah, I can't really fix on a fixed schedule, but yeah, that's happening a lot in the future. So you can uh, consider that. I think I again lost the chat. 1 second. Uh, React versus Vue versus Angular. Okay, it's not really it's more like all these three can solve a problem. It depends on which one is made for you, right? The idea is that React, Vue, and Angular works. The question is that does that work for you? Individually, you would have great React developers, you would have great Vue developers, you would have great Angular developers as well. But I could be a great React developer, but I might not be the best Vue developer. So that's your taste. Like, do you like Vue more than React or Angular? For the most part, you have external libraries and everything to bring in support for all the functionalities. It's just a matter of choice, right? It depends on you. Will this be uploaded? Yes, Aditya, this would be uploaded. I think YouTube just does that automatically after the live stream, so I don't really need to do anything. But yeah, this would be available. What is the best language for beginners in programming? Depends. I mean, if you're just targeting programming language, I would say the easiest one to start with would be JavaScript or Python, because they are dynamically typed, very forgiving, allows you to do a ton of things. But if you want to actually get into an industry like back end or front end, just like we discussed, you want to have the correct set of skills. Like it is kind of meaningless to learn C and C++ when you want to be a front end developer, right? So that's the idea. Software engineers must need computer programming. Is it computer or competitive? I mean, if it is computer programming, of course. If it is competitive programming, I don't know. I mean, for front-end development, you don't really need competitive programming. Um, in Fang, okay. Whatever your question, Python or JS is the best language to start. Yep, that's I think that's a good suggestion. How important are data structure and algorithms for front end? It's asked in interviews a lot, but it's a huge topic on its own. I mean, yeah, data structures and algorithms. I won't go for algorithms that much in depth, but data structures, just make sure you are familiar with your language, right? It does not depend on front and back end and everything, but stuff like arrays and linked list and heaps and stack, you should have a basic understanding of that, of course, because um, you won't be really working if you are hired on Facebook. You won't be really working on React code base the first day, but the idea is that you would be eventually working, right? So they want people who at least know what a tree is, or who at least know what a heap is. So learn a bit about them, but focus more on your actual practical part as well. So yeah, uh, let's see. I might skip some questions. I'm sorry. I think there are way too many. Okay, let's see. I have advanced HTML, CSS, JSS, React, Gatsby next, but I am still working on getting my first full front end app live. Okay, which is owned by the company I work for. How do you judge when you're good? You don't. I mean, you don't judge yourself at all. That is the whole point, right? Neil, the idea is that you just have to go ahead, build things, put them out, and put them in front of people. People will tell you if that is good enough or not, right? You know, the a single person can tell you, I can tell you you're good enough, but you might not be. I can tell you you are bad enough, but you might be the best developer in your whole region or whatever, right? So the idea is, do not let a single person or yourself judge yourself. Build your stuff, put it in front of the market, and let people evaluate that. Because just like I said, when you read 10 articles, that just destroys the bias. In the same way, when you put your product in front of a lot of people, that would destroy that bias with the friends and family, that they have to tell you that you're good enough, or maybe some people who don't like you, that they're bad enough. So just go ahead, build your stuff, put it in front of you, and people would rate your skills, right? So, and eventually, once you see that people are seeing that, yeah, their product is useful or helpful, or maybe you get suggestions on where you can improve, you're gonna eventually get that feeling. You would have that feeling when you think that you can work with good large code bases and everything. So yeah, that's the idea. uh, okay, sound seems low. Okay. I'm really screwing this this first live session, I guess. What is the scope for Vue? Vue don't have any job right now in India. Why do you need a job in India? With the COVID situation and everything, I'm pretty sure that all of you can see that the situation now is that you can actually get remote jobs as well. So why don't you search for jobs outside India? Why don't you search for jobs globally? Like Vue might not be very popular in India, but it is definitely popular globally. So look for global jobs, look for jobs which are remote at the moment if you are really in need of a job, and apply for that. Is there any free server to learn DevOps? I don't know, honestly. I haven't seen any free server. Well, you're always gonna, you can sign up for services like Google Cloud, which give you $300 free credit for 1 year. So yeah, that's one part where you can get free server if you want, but you still have to validate your credit card. So yeah. uh, will the demand for the front-end developers drop with the availability of tools like Weebly, Shopify, Wix? No, I don't think so, because you cannot build Weebly in Weebly, you cannot build Wix in Wix, right? So the companies which are actually there, which actually want customized solutions will always need good developers, right? um, because once you pass that particular threshold of complexity, you cannot build those things with these tools anymore, right? So I mean, how complicated of an app can you build in Wix eventually, right? You would hit that threshold eventually. I cannot really speak with for the just for the front end. It might be possible you can build to great extent for front end, but once you bring in back end for the integration with front end, it kind of would fall apart, whatever you have built with Wix or anything, because it would be hard to integrate everything, just have that state maintained, that all that understanding of front end is not there. It's a third party tool. So yeah, I believe that should answer your question. How long will it take to be a good front end developer to apply for the jobs, and how many projects do I need? This is not a fixed hard and fast rule that you would need at least 7 projects and 3 hours of 3 months of preparation. This is not a fixed rule. Just start working on your skills, right? Give it a couple of weeks at least, right? And just start looking for jobs as well. If you want job, just start looking for them, see what they want, and just see if you have those skills set yet. If you do, apply for them. You might be rejected, you might get selected. Most likely you would be rejected if you are just a new person who's applying very early. If you get rejected, try to ask where you can improve, try to ask yourself where you lagged, and work on that. That's the main idea. What I mean is, what benefits does React bring to the table? What was your question? Is React really needed? Yes, frameworks like this, that is really, really needed. The reason for that is that you do not want to reinvent the wheel every time, right? So the guys at Facebook, the guys working on React, what they did is they created a very core underlying machinery which would actually allow you to mutate the DOM, which would allow you to change the elements on page and render and everything for free for you, right? I mean, when you're working on an application of a very large scale, you would at some point need to have that functionality again, right? And you do not want to do that. You do not want to implement that thing again. So React actually future proofs your application for complexity. It might seem like not a good idea to use React like libraries initially, but if you aim to create a big project, if you aim to create a large scalable project, that's what it brings. Like it provides you a sense of security, a sense of performance, a sense of great code written, and a sense of modularity as well, because you are not maintaining React, somebody else is for you. So that's like a free member on your team. So yeah. Is it right to put tutorial projects on GitHub portfolio? Yeah, go ahead. I mean, who's counting? Just go ahead and do that. No problem. Let's see what else we have. What would you suggest to someone who has mock-up ideas for website but struggling with making that to proper websites? Firstly, understand why you want to do that, because if you don't want to become a front-end developer, why would you want to create proper websites? Secondly, if you want to be a front-end developer, why don't you start learning front-end development? I mean, that's what this whole presentation was all about, how you can get into front-end development. So if you have a mock-up, or if you have an idea, I mean, if you want to learn web development as well, just go ahead and learn front-end development, create some pages for yourself, and yeah. Or if you are a business-minded person who wants to just focus on other things, get someone who knows about front-end development, just pay them, or just give them a share of your idea or whatever you're working on, and take it from there. That's simple, right? I have been doing freelance projects on Vue, and there's enough opportunity. Okay. I think that was not a question. Okay, can't speak. To learn JS, what would you recommend? Books versus video tutorial? Again, this is something which differs from person to person. I myself cannot read books. I have written more books on programming than I have honestly read, right? So I have two books written, but I cannot read, I cannot learn from books. I personally learn from video tutorials only. Video tutorials, documentation, stuff like that. Books kind of like snooze me out. So it depends on you. Try to read a book. If you like it, continue it. If not, switch on video tutorials. Maybe do both. Maybe do everything. See what works for you. When can I become a senior dev? Well, I mean, it's not a question which I can answer. It's just a question which time will tell, depending on how much effort you are putting in every day. If you are a junior developer already, I would say bring more challenging problems on the table, bring more, I don't know, bring something which actually challenges you to expand your boundaries. That's the sure shot way of learning, and you can only become senior developer when you are actually pushing your boundaries, right? So if you're just playing within your boundaries, if you're just, just a regular developer who's doing his daily job, it's kind of hard to become a senior dev, because those guys at the top actually know what they are doing, really. uh, okay, let's see. YouTube, yeah, but there's that struggle with starting anything right after doing tutorials, and how to get past that struggle. That's not struggle, honestly. That's a phase, I would say, and that phase comes in everybody's life. So just realize that that is the phase you have to pass in order to, do other great things. There's no way around it. You do not have a lot of options other than actually, going through that and learning that, if you want to become a good developer. If not, then of course there are other things to look for, like you can have a different career, a different industry. That's on you. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a shortcut, that does not exist, honestly. You have to put in the work if you want to be a good developer. uh, you're welcome, Rishabh, for the comment. Tariq, do you think I'm near the end with the project? I think you are if I am able to resolve your um, doubt on Instagram, which you just messaged me. Yeah. How can we develop ML based web apps or hybrid apps? Any framework? For ML based web apps, if you mean like your model actually running directly in the browser, you have TensorFlow.js already for that. So you can do that. For the most part, if you want to develop ML based apps, you have to like, you know, create a backend sort of thing, run your model on the server, and make your backend act as a REST API or something, which exposes some sort of API to your front end or to your mobile applications, which then you make use of just like a regular app, right? So the answer to your question is that on the front end part for an ML based web app, you're gonna just use regular front end stuff, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Angular, whatever. On the back end part, you're gonna make use of actual the model which you have trained or whatever, and expose a REST API or something using that. It's that part only. Um, is making notes about learning everything good? Since I suffer from ADHD, I'm practically the only one who writes down everything I learn in my own words. I mean, it's not a problem. If you want to write notes, it's not a problem at all. Um, I have seen people who learn from notes. I have seen people who learn from, they have just a memory with seeing, right? So honestly, I prefer to watch a video 5 times instead of like writing notes a single time, which is bad, I know. But yeah, if it works for you, good enough, go for it. The idea, the overall, the idea is to actually figure out what works for you. Everything in the industry works. React works, Angular works, Vue works. Making notes would work, not making notes would work. Everything works. The idea is, does it work for you as a person? You have to figure that out and then make use of that thing which works for you. What website do you suggest to look for jobs on to work remotely? Stack Overflow jobs is like That's what comes to my mind. There's also this TripleByte site, triplebyte.com, which you can take a look. I mean, I'm not endorsing anything, but again, this is a question which you can go ahead and ask on Google, the 10 tabs philosophy. See what people have to say. Let's see any other questions. How can I start applying to remote jobs? I'm from India and cannot relocate abroad if they ask. I learned Vue and it's too hard to find a job. I think I chose the wrong framework. Uh, well, if you want a remote job, then look for remote jobs. That's that's all I can say, because a lot of jobs have that part in their job description, right? So it would be very weird if a company actually accepts your application, then tells you to relocate, because if they have that you are remotely available as a label in their job description, they would be respecting that, I believe. So yeah, that's the idea. uh, let's see. And also, you forgot to mention a core important subject about every field of programming: tutorial hell. Tutorial hell, the reason I did not mention it, because I was mentioning building always in the between. Tutorial hell happens when you stop building stuff. This is one of the reasons I want people to always build. Tutorial hell does not happen if you watch a lot of tutorials and you're building a lot of things as well. Tutorial hell happens when you sit back every day with a pillow on your back, or you're just relaxing, enjoying, and you're just binging the tutorials. That is tutorial hell. When you binge the tutorials and then you work for 6 hours directly on your project also, that is not a tutorial hell. I would actually recommend you to consume as much content as you can while building stuff as well. So yeah, that's the idea. How do you move from the tutorial hell to actually doing it on your own? By actually doing it on your own. That is the answer. When you're watching a tutorial, see what you are learning, see what skill sets you have and what you can make out of from it. Start a mini project. And what I did myself is that when I used to learn technologies back in the day, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, I would pick up a game, an idea, anything like just like I mentioned, rock paper scissors game, and I won't know how to make that. I just know I can make the image for rock paper scissors. I can add 3 images, rock paper and scissors on the page. That's it. That's all I knew. Then I would learn about how I can make them interactive, how I can do a custom code, how I can run a custom JavaScript code when I click on that. What is a click event? Figuring out by actually building stuff is the answer. Like, you have your answer in the question. You actually get out of the tutorial hell by doing it. Okay, Devansh, I'm sorry if your question was misinterpreted. No problem. Best of luck. Karthik, this was a session about front-end web development. This would be available on this channel after this live stream ends. So yeah, I mean, I covered everything, starting from what a front-end web development thing is, how you can get into it, what you should do, how you should approach things, and yeah. Samaresh, I believe you definitely did not watch the session. So yeah, front-end developers do work on CSS. Okay, so I think that's it for this session, I believe. If you have any more questions, I'm just gonna hold 5 more minutes. It's almost a couple of hours now. I wanted to keep it under 1 hour, but nevertheless, it's good to have people, asking questions. So Mitesh asks that is it possible to switch job from support to dev? Of course. Who's stopping you? I mean, do you have a military contract or something? Of course not. It's 100% possible. Work on your skill sets, apply for jobs which are relevant, and obviously you can switch once you are selected somewhere, right? So yeah, 5 more minutes. That's what I can promise for now. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask right away. Do you upload tutorials for Python? I do not at the moment, because my tech stack is precisely around JavaScript only. So I work with JavaScript and its associated runtimes, TypeScript, Node, React Native, React, stuff like that. So I work with that. um, I don't want to get into Python right now for a bunch of reasons. I don't want to go into that as well. But yeah, we would have content for Python definitely on codedamn.com from some other creator or some external creator who's good enough in the field, if that's what the motive was for asking this question. What are the benefits in the WhatsApp group? The WhatsApp group is for people who are in the CodeDam mentorship group. We discuss things there, like what you are up to, what you are learning. We discuss resources, help people who are stuck with problems, and they get to know about events like this a couple of days earlier, and not just bam on the live stream. So yeah, thank you everyone who's appreciating in the comment section. I really appreciate it. What language is good for front-end dev? I would upload this video again, so make sure you watch it. So don't worry about that, Milad. Will Flutter be the future of mobile development? It's hard to say. I mean, there are a lot of alternatives and a lot of popular ones as well. So not really the future, but yes, definitely it would be a future of mobile development. Please reply. What's your question, Zimal? I think I missed your question. Can you just write that again? Do college dropouts have any scope with this? Yes, they have a scope if they think they have a scope. They do not have a scope if they think they do not have a scope. As simple as that. If you are willing to put in the work, people are going to hire you. I honestly believe that a person who can really provide a value to a fast growing startup which is well funded would always be looking for a person who can actually bring value to the table, and not for a random person with a degree who does not know how to code computers, right? So if that answers your question, Prateek. What backend to choose in 2020? I would say go with anything you already have a knowledge for. Like, there are emerging players like Rust, Go, Golang, stuff like that. Then there are well established players like Node, Python, stuff like that. So that is also available as a backend choice. PHP is an old technology, but is still pretty much powering a lot of web right now. So just do a little bit of research, see what you like, see what works for you. And yeah, have you worked for any app previously? Yep, I made a bunch of apps in the past, mostly on Android, because iOS was paid. I have this very lame and stupid app called Kids Fight, which is a multiplayer application, works on Bluetooth, where you can, I don't know, just throw some shoes and stones and weapons on each other. It's a 2-player game. So yeah, I mean, I have worked with a bunch of apps in the past. So yeah. Will this session be removed now, or will it be up as a save? It would be up as a save. I might trim it down because it's too much content. I think we have a lot of gaps in between as well. But yeah, I think I would keep it. Can't open Play Store link of CodeDam. Yep, the application for CodeDam is not available right now because I have been making crazy changes to backend API, and I did not want to update every single hour on the Play Store. I would bring it back. Don't worry about that. So I would just let you guys all know about that once that is available. Okay, everyone. Let's make it 2 hour, shall we? 5 more minutes if anybody wants to ask anything else, because I can see we have 170 people still watching this. So how should be the folder structure to reduce the complexity of big and complex React Redux apps? Well, this is a good question. I myself actually did a lot of Googling and research on this part. At the end of the day, it kind of boils down to keeping, should you keep your reducers, actions, and all the types and everything together. That's what works for me. So I keep my reducer action types, everything together. I keep my components together. I keep my components JavaScript and CSS files together. So I keep like the working the individual bits of the app together, which can be taken out and use anywhere else. That's what works for me. For other people, it's like they keep all their code together, they keep all their CSS together. So it kind of depends. So yeah, I mean, just figure out a bunch of styles, see what works for you. Is there any good library for WebRTC or raw browser API is good enough? Rishabh, honestly, I haven't worked with WebRTC for any serious projects, so I won't be answering this question for you, because I don't want to guide you in the wrong direction by saying that raw browser would be good. Just do a little bit of research, see what comes up. I don't have any good experience with real-time communication for web yet, so yeah. I'm currently learning React and React Native, so Node.js and Mongo or MySQL is a good choice, right? I feel a bit difficult to learn PHP. Yeah, fine. If you're learning React and React Native, I assume that you already know JavaScript, so I hope that you would be able to catch up with Node quickly. And with Node, MySQL and Mongo both are good. So yeah, your question is pretty much self-contained and answerable. Can you please make videos on load balancing for Mean and Mon and Amazon storage for MongoDB? Load balancing is a very specific topic for servers and everything. I hope to have a whole, a learning path kind of thing itself for the backend stuff. I actually have started that as well with the DigitalOcean playlist. So yeah, stuff like, load balancing and managing clusters and all that stuff which involves servers, which involves the backend APIs, the cloud APIs, is on the way. So you can expect that soon. And since PHP is old, I feel like I shouldn't choose that. PHP is old, but so is HTML, and so is JavaScript. JavaScript is from 95 or something, as far as I know. And PHP for the most part powers a lot of web as well. But again, just like I said, PHP is like, you're right, it's not secure by design. It has a lot of, nits and grits which are not liked by a lot of people. But the fact is, it's powering a lot of web. WordPress is built on PHP, and WordPress powers, I guess, 20% of the web. So yeah, I mean, you can keep PHP in your bag, but it's good if you want to have a different skill set as well. When is the next session? I don't know. I would be informing you guys. If you are registered on codedamn.com, you would be not really getting that, because I just mailed that to the mentorship people only for now. But yeah, just make sure to subscribe. You're gonna know when it's the next session. Let's see. What is the difference? What is the fundamental difference between Redux and Context API? Well, the fundamental difference is Redux is third party and Context API is from React team itself. So that is the fundamental difference, if you ask me. Other than that, Redux is not a React specific library only, although a lot of people think that it's just for React. You can use Redux independently or with other frameworks as well. And yeah, I mean, with Redux you get a little bit of better tooling, as in you have Redux dev tools. You can jump forward and back in time, so that's a little bit advantageous if you have a lot of stores and stuff going on and you want to debug something. So yeah. Would you recommend Laravel as backend for our modern front-end developments? Well, if you're good enough with PHP, sure, go for it. But just like I said, I think Laravel is like Laravel and Zend too, I believe, because I don't really work with PHP anymore now. I used to work a lot back in the days, but yeah, these two are like very popular frameworks for backend with PHP. But yeah, if you work with PHP, sure, why not? Should we learn Recoil? Will it be the new Redux? I have seen Recoil in the wind now. I haven't really honestly worked with Recoil personally, so I won't be answering that question yet, because again, just like I said, I don't want to direct you in a different direction which might not work out. So just do a little bit of googling on that and we should be good. What is webhooks? How I can use it in my application? You definitely don't want to use webhooks like as a feature in your application, because webhooks is pretty much a technology which allows you to be aware about something that has happened, right? So for example, if a payment has been made on a third party gateway, you can set up a webhook on that third party gateway to inform your main server that yes, a payment has been made. That is called a webhook, right? So maybe you were thinking about WebSocket, but I'm not really sure. And it's 2 hours now. I think I should just take a final question. Is there any better Create React app boilerplate alternative with server-side rendering? Yep, it's called Next.js. So Next.js comes with built-in server-side rendering, React support, all that good stuff. Progressive web app, go for it. It's a good choice. So yeah, guys, that's basically it for this live session. If you have any more questions, ask them in the comments below, not in the live chat, because it's going to close now. And hopefully this was useful, this was beneficial. This was a different experience for me too. And yeah, thank you all for showing up. That's all. I'm gonna see you pretty soon in some other video, in the next video. And yeah, good night from India. That's all. See you then in the next one.